All right, great. Here we go. Welcome to the Right Focus. Our guest today is Marilyn Levinson, and I'll let her take charge. Here you go.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. And I'm very happy to be here today.
Happy to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. And what did you want to ask me questions or?
Tell me about your books that you have coming out and that you have published. Just give me an idea about what writing you have out.
Oh, okay. Well, I started out writing as children's novels. And I published about 5 or 7 of those. And then I started writing mysteries and one romantic suspense. And now one of my children's books is going to be in a series. It's going to be reissued. Yeah, it was a children's choice called Rufus and Magic Went Amok. It's a funny book.
Okay.
And then 3 more books will be coming out. And for the last 20 years, I've been writing mysteries for adults.
Okay.
That's what I've been doing. My latest series, which I write as Alison Brook, is my Haunted Library series. And that's with Crooked Lane. And
okay, that's nice.
Yeah. And the name of the book that's coming out in September is called Dewey Decimated. Yes, there is a ghost in the library. And I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute.
Okay.
This is my Dewey Decimated is the 6th book in the series. I am almost finished writing the 7th book, and I'm contracted to write the 8th. And I told my agent, my editor, that I would like to stop writing the series and start a new one, a completely different series. So they gave me their blessing, and so I'm plotting that in a way. So I have about, I don't know, 24, 26 books out altogether.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I have other mysteries out as well, written under my own name. And sometimes I like to add a paranormal element, which I did in this book. I did it in the Rufus book, and I did it in another mystery I wrote some years ago called Giving Up the Ghost. And that's out as an ebook. I don't always add one, but I like to occasionally.
Okay. So how long have you been with your current publisher? From the beginning?
No, they published about 5 years ago, Death Overdue came out, and it really did very, very well. It was a American with Library Associations that had a starred review. It was the book of the month. It just got so many accolades. It was and it also was a nominee for the Agatha for the Malice for 2017. So that was really nice. And people like the series. They like my characters. I think they like the relationships. My characters are very dear to me. And in a way, I feel bad about leaving them after the 8th book, but I feel that the story arc is complete. And yeah, my character, Carrie Singleton, my main character, my sleuth, she started out being, well, she comes from a dysfunctional family, and she really had no center, and she would travel from place to place. And she was feeling very down, and her mother, who was newly married and is living in Hollywood with her young husband, and he's trying to get acting jobs, just could not take her in shoes. And so she went to stay with her great aunt and uncle, where they used to have a farm, and now they live on the green in this town of Clover Ridge, Connecticut. And she gets a job in the library, and at first it's just a nothing job. She's just reshelving books. And her uncle is on the library board, and she also happens to have a degree in library science. So when a position opens up, her uncle, unbeknownst to her, says something to the director, why don't you consider Carrie?
Mhm.
Just when Carrie is about to leave, she's had enough. She feels, I'm leaving. She does move on from year to year. She's almost 30, has not settled anywhere. And the director doesn't seem very happy to have her there, but she does need someone, and Carrie does have the credentials. And a voice tells her, don't be an idiot, but tell her that you will think about it. And that's what she does. And she begins to think about it, and her aunt and uncle, her great aunt and uncle, who become her rock. She's lived with them for 7 months, and they recommend that give it a try. And she does. And from there, the story builds from there. And the arc of the story is how Carrie develops really as a person. And that's as important to me as what goes on with mysteries. And the voice that spoke to her is Evelyn Havers, the ghost of an older woman, in quotes, older woman, like Miss Marple's an older woman, you know, and who had died. She is she used to work in the library, so she lived in town, and she helps Carrie solve murder mysteries. Usually, because sometimes her family is involved, and Evelyn does not want to give any information or any help in case one of her nieces or her nephew is involved in crime, which you do find out they do. And also you find out in a few books later, the third book, that her death was not the accident that everyone thought that it was. Yeah. So I try to build, you know, I do have a real town in mind that I built this around, but of course I do whatever I want with my town. I build it the way I want to. And it's a wonderful town. And so the library is built right on the green. It's one of these old buildings. These old buildings are built around this huge green, which once was much larger, because, you know, that's where cows used to wander in the 1800s. Yeah. And now, of course, they have events there. And that's where I placed the library, like on the corner. And in the book that's coming out in September, they're breaking, the town bought the library, the building next to the library, which has been dilapidated. These people owned it. They never did anything with it. It was always a series of people had owned it for the last 300 years. And what happens is they find a body in the basement. And by accident, the builders, they're redoing the entire building, and accidentally they break through the wall in a place where they're not supposed to. And the ghost of the dead person comes into the library, and he starts whizzing around and creating a whirlwind, and he's frightening patrons. And so Carrie and Evelyn appears. Carrie never knows when Evelyn's going to show up, but thank God she comes. And they whisk him off to Carrie's office, and they tell him, you can't do that. You have to stay. We have to find a place to put you. He doesn't know who he is, why he's there, where am I, who am I? He knows nothing. And the poor guy, they move him from the room upstairs in the attic to the rooms that aren't being used. And meanwhile, they're trying to find out who he is. And they discover that he is Carrie's engaged. And this is her fiance, Dylan Avery's uncle. So, but we still don't know why he's there. And so, and it's just, you know, it's a lot of fun. A cozy should be a lot of fun. And these are cozy books.
Okay.
Yeah.
It sounds very, very amusing, and I would enjoy reading it. Can you come into it and reading the last book and then back up and read the others? Is it that much of a standalone?
Yes, you can. And the reason I know this is because so many people who have reviewed individual books that is one thing they've said. They've said, you can start reading anywhere, but I'm going back to read the others. You get a deeper understanding, but you get a pretty good picture of where Carrie comes from. Her father was a thief in the second book. Yeah, he breaks into her house and he loves her, but he wants her to help him regain money that the jeweler in town who he did a heist with. He said, he's not answering my mail. He's not answering my notes. I want you to set up a meeting. And of course, Carrie doesn't want to, and she's very hurt by her father because he left the family. So you see how their relationship strengthens over time. And every, the people are connected. The book before, Death on the Shelf, her best friend gets married, and you see all the trials and tribulations of a marriage, not a marriage, of a wedding, and family, and what goes on there. And so I bring a lot of the same people through, people who I mentioned early on in one of the early books, and then it comes through, something about this person comes up in future books. So it's like a little tap to me. Yeah.
That's one of the things people like about cozies is they get a group of friends, and then they follow those friends all through the course of your series. Now, when you're starting to think about your next series, will you develop a new town, and you will of course have new friends?
Everything will be completely different. I know who my protagonist will be. She's going to be older, divorced, in her 40s, and she's going to have one son. And I already know certain things, and other things I still don't know, because that's not even the next book I'm writing. I still have one more book in this series to write. And so I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. And I decided it's going to be on an island, and I finally decided where I was going to place this island. So I wanted that idea that this is a town it's sort of, not that it's isolated, but it's set, and people, in order to get there, would need to take the ferry or an individual boat. Yeah. So and again, it's not going to be a real island, so you couldn't look for it on a map, but it's,
I couldn't go look for Martha's Vineyard.
Right. Exactly.
But it's that kind of island.
Exactly. And it's interesting because once you're aware of something, you're aware of so many islands, whatever it is you're looking in. But that's the fun also about writing cozies. I remember when I was writing about the wedding, I was looking into all the different aspects of it. And then even I just recently, my sleuth, Carrie, is bringing desserts to this bad guy. He may or may not be the murderer. And she's bringing him French pastries. And I find myself looking up the different kinds of French pastries there are. I mean, but you really have to know what you're talking about. And the good thing about cozies that you don't have to know too much about different guns, different ammunition. Yeah, I'm reading a book now by somebody who was a policeman, and he writes about guns, and he knows what he's talking about, And that's just not the thrust of a cozy. So
no, it's more on the humor and the relationships, and solving a murder, but not going into the forensic detail or the gory details or anything like that, which is why I like cozies.
And it's more of a puzzle, and yes, you deal with the relationships. And what I like to always do, I very often have two aspects of the story and have them connect. And this is especially apparent in the Checked Out for Murder, where I have Carrie's mother and her husband come to Clover Ridge because Tom is in a movie, and there's a whole cast for the movie and what happens there. And meanwhile, there is an old murder, and there is another murder that's connected to the old murder, and everything is related, actually. So that took some working on, tying everything in. But I do like to go into the past. I feel that people are intrigued by secrets and by events that took place in the past. I know I am.
Yes, I am. And then I'm wondering about the motivations behind the reason, not just for keeping things secret, but why it developed and then became a secret, and then why they hold on to that secret. All that is, I'm very intrigued by.
Yeah, I think it's human nature. We're kind of nosy, like, yeah. So and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, we really are. And I think, cold cases always are appealing. We always wonder about that. In fact, that's how I opened Death Overdue, the first book in the series. Harry is the very first person who she's having come speak is a retired detective, and he had a cold case in town, and this woman had died 15 years ago, and he's made the announcement, and he wants to talk about the fact that he now knows who murdered this woman. He felt he was drinking a lot at the time when he was on the case, and he never solved the case, and he felt very bad about it. And he makes this announcement. He's going to reveal some of it, and he now knows it. And then in the library, while he's giving this presentation, he keels over dead. So Harry is really horrified, and her boss, Sally, is even worse, she's just, yeah. So as I said, I think we're very intrigued by old cases.
Yes. So when you're planning your next series, it sounds like you have the town and pretty much the setting, and try to have the majority of your close relationships worked out before you ever start writing or figuring out the story arc for the first book. Yeah,
I figured that out. Yes, I think I do have that pretty much figured out. Yeah, and I know what my sleuth is going to be. I don't do any. It's not gonna be food. I mean, I do bring food in a lot because Carrie either making stuff or bringing in meals from this gourmet market, and they're eating out. They're eating a lot, but it's not a bakery, so to speak. Something like that. And so I do have an idea of what she will be, and some of the people in the town. And I think it's a lot of fun, to come up with a new cast of characters, because, you have to really know them well. They have to see you through several books. And of course, every new book brings new characters, because you can't kill off you don't want to kill off the nice friends and relatives, but, and you need different stories, different, people want to have stories and lots of suspects. And so that's part of the fun, and an animal or two, people love animals, right?
Yes, so, yes, either a cat or a little puppy or something like that.
Smoky Joe is the library cat. I remember I was going to bring him in the second book, but my editor said, why don't you add a cat? This is after I had written the first book, and I did it right away. He came from Carrie was living in a cottage that she rented from Dylan. This before they start going out, and he has a large piece of property. The manor, as she calls it, the manor, a big house, and then about a quarter of a mile down the road, the cottage that she rents, and behind that is a farm. So Smoky Joe ambled through the woods one morning, and she's ready to go to work. And so she had the car door open, and he jumped into the car. And so she ends up taking him to the library, and then she can't let him out in the parking lot. I mean, that's
Right.
terrible. So she brings him into the and she's just had this job like what 1 month. I mean, you know, animals, you know, and she brings the cat in, and the children's librarians and Sally, who is the director, see her, and you know, and Sally is horrified, and Marion, the children's librarian, says, "Oh, a cat." And Carrie says, "Oh yes, this is going to be the library cat." And Marion says, "Oh, what a wonderful idea!" And he goes right to the children, and it's amazing because, you know, he's half grown, but he's not shy at all, and he proves to be a very wonderful pet. He kind of knows which patrons to keep away from. You know, people who don't want cats to be near them, and and yet he's very friendly. And Carrie has to remind everyone not to feed him, by everyone, her friends, her best friend Angela, Marion, and they all have a stash of kitty treats. Yeah. So in fact, in the second book, Red and Gone, Smoky Joe finds something. He finds these jewels, believe it or not, that are hidden in the library. These are the jewels that her father was looking for.
Oh.
How did they end up in the library? Well, you'll have to read the book to know that. But but Smoky Joe is very popular, and you know, he's a wonderful character.
So when you're planning your next series, you're going to plan to have an animal of some sort who could be like that. And will you plan your titles? Because you have all these library connected titles for this series, for which you have 8 books. Are you planning to have like a list of titles for the next series that you're going to work on? How do you come up with your titles?
Well, okay, I come up with a title, but they don't they don't necessarily take it. And so what they do is they'll tell me, "Marilyn, okay, we need a title." For example, the book I'm writing now, I don't even want to think of a title because I know that it won't be used. So I have a group of writer friends. We're constantly in touch. And I ask them, I say, "Oh, okay, I need a title." And that's how I got Dewey Decimated. One of my friends came up with it. And if the publishers like it, you know, they'll use it. But sometimes they come up with their own titles. And in other words, I don't have much to do with it. You know, I can suggest something, but as I said, they're related to reading, to libraries, and we hope there'll be. We need 2 more titles.
So what did you've given me a really good glimpse of your idea process, that how you start, because you've talked about this second series that you're going to develop. How do you take the book from that original idea process? Do you think about the murder next, or do you start writing and the murder comes up?
That's an interesting question, because I get an idea. I usually get 2 major ideas or 2 situations. You know, okay, could be the library, the extension that they're building, which was in the last book. And so I thought, oh, okay, you know, find a body there, but somebody else is murdered. And I usually, like, for example, in that book, I was thinking Carrie goes on to they ask her to go on to the town. So I think of what kind of problem or issue could they be debating, disputing, and out of that might come a murder. I don't necessarily think of the murder right away, but I know there's a situation where somebody comes to it. And the thing is that the last several books, people always say, are you a plotter or a pantser or a plotter? I used to plot my books much more. And now I still start out with a basic plan, at least for the first third. And then, thank goodness, it continues, and the ideas just naturally develop and take off and resolve themselves. So, for example, I'm writing the very end of this book now, and it's where Carrie is confronting the murderer. And incidentally, it's so hot out, but it's snowing. It's snowing. So she's in the snow, tramping along in the snow after having promised her boyfriend, her fiance, she's going to be careful. She's peeking in where these people are going, you know, and I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen? And somehow I'm able to trust myself to come up with a situation that's going to resolve the murder without her getting murdered, well, and the murderer not killing a fourth person. And somehow your mind has been trained to work it out. So I think it's very interesting that while of course you plan a book, I do anyway, I know how it's going to begin. I know what two elements will be in the book. But somehow I allow myself the luxury or the freedom to come up with the solution. I'm not even sure how it works out in your head, but you have to have it really be free and loose to think of all different possibilities so that it's plausible. Remember, this is a cozy. It has to be plausible and not come across where, oh, she's so stupid, or, oh, you know, so it's, but thank goodness so far it's worked. So,
right.
Yeah.
So when you come to the end of a good working draft and you have handled and taken care of as many plot holes and plot discrepancies and character discrepancies that you see that you might have had, what's your next step? Do you send it to beta readers, or what do you do?
No, I don't. Okay. No, it goes straight to my editor. Okay. I go over it 3 times. And for example, I have little notes at the very top of my manuscript, this and that. And I've already gone over my manuscript up until a certain point because I got stuck. And so I started from the beginning. And and that enabled me to continue. And I think we all of us feel so at times, how am I going to write another book? They're so complicated. And my books are kind of complicated because my books actually come in at 83,000 words, which is considerably longer than most most cozies. So there's more going on, or more depth, or more whatever going on. And you want to tie up loose ends. So, and I also have to make sure that Monday follows Sunday and Thursday follows Wednesday, because sometimes one book in particular, I wasn't watching the calendar carefully, and because there are things you can't do on the weekend, or the things, you really have to be careful. So that's something I look at also. And then I send it to I don't even send it to my agent. I just send it to my editor, and that's it. And she, and she never really has me do very much about it. And my editor goes over it twice, and the copy editor goes over it twice. And meanwhile, I'm going over it more times. So, and you know that no matter how many times you go over it, there's always
nothing is 100%.
I know. And sometimes readers will find something, and I thank them, and I do appreciate it. But there's always going to be something that slips by. I guess it's also because nobody, like even your editor, nobody reads it in one evening, you know, and remembers what happened on page 65. They're up to 280, and another person will have read something and remember something. So you do the best you can, you know, and they're very, very good, Crooked Lane, I feel, when it comes to editing.
How do you maintain productivity? Do you write every day? Do you have a certain number of word counts per session? How do you set up your writing?
I do. I think Kaye explained to you when you had Kaye George. Okay, well, Kaye is a very close friend of mine, and we're in this little group together. And one day, not this book, but the book before, I said, I think we were both starting a book at the same time. I said, you want to report to each other just like that? And we did. And it was good for her because she didn't have a contract. Well, I mean, this is the book that came out yesterday, her book that, And so you see, she finished it, you know.
Yeah.
And she said, well, I'll take your deadline. You know, I had a deadline. And somehow it worked for us. We don't feel in competition. We're very comfortable. We're in communication anyway. So I know what she's doing today. Knows what I'm doing. But, you know, we'll say, oh, I didn't write it today. Or I wrote this blog, I did that, whatever. And it worked well for us. And then for this book that we're working on, our friend Peg joined us. So Peg London. And so, and Peg and I are like, her books aren't as long, but we're like at the same point. And she's at the same, we're both at the same point in the book, you know, and about the murderer, the sleuth and the murderer encountering one another. And you know, and Kaye's been doing other stuff, but it's somehow it stirs us to write more. I mean, not that we work every single day, we don't feel driven, but somehow I find that I'm writing more words because of this, and for some reason or other. And I don't exactly know what is going on that is helping so much, but and it's also, sometimes we talk about what we're experiencing, and it's something you share as a writer, you know, or even just saying, I had a problem and I worked it out. I mean, we feel free to talk about our problems. That's part of our group's purpose is, and we do that as well. But somehow or other, this reporting business is good for us.
Right.
And
as long as you keep the competitive aspect out of it. Because I've tried to do that once with somebody and they were very competitive.
Really? No,
and I would report, I did 1,000 words and they would go like, oh, I did 3,000, you know, and I'm going like, how did they do 3,000? Because they were working their day job the same as I was. And
wow.
Like,
no, we're not at all. You know, that's so, you have to get somebody else then to do it with, because we're not like that at all. And very often one of us is like, Peg she was busy with her granddaughter the last few days, and they were making cookies and what have you, and fine. Or I got very busy with something and I didn't write, you know. No, we're not, we don't even feel, you know, we don't even feel we have to have a certain amount of words. So, but I think it might work with someone else, a different type of person.
I definitely might try that again, because I think that does keep you honest, that you're always doing something related to your writing business. If you do have someone that you report into who's helpful as opposed to competitive.
Yeah, we're very supportive of each other, you know, really. And someone might say, I took off time to just to think of, you know, the next, the rest of the plot. Or for a few weeks, I was just going over stuff I had already written.
Mhm.
So, but it's sort of that you have company
Mhm.
and somebody knows what you're doing. You're not alone in this.
Mhm. Right. Right. Okay. According to this, we have, I take my glasses off to see, less than 2 minutes. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about that I did not ask about?
No, I don't think so. But do you think that most writers have like two areas that they write about? Because I think that so many people do. Like so many writers I know write short stories and
Right.
mysteries. Yeah.
Mhm.
And what do you think about that? That
I lean toward the novel. When I started writing, I was writing novels at around 90,000 words or more. But
wow.
this year I have taken it on to try to understand short stories, and pulling that into the short story aspect and narrowing that down. I was very successful with the first 5 to keep it right at 5,000 to 6,000 words, right around in that area. But the last 2 were 7,000, and then the last one was 8,700. And I'm going like, okay, I need to really sharpen that down because I'm getting long form again, and I didn't want to do that. So I do think that some people aim toward a particular area of writing.
Yeah.
And I think we're fixing to run out of time because mine says less than 1 minute, and that said that just a second ago. So I want to thank you so much, Marilyn.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was fun to talk and chat about writing. It's always fun to talk about writing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is. And next time I write down how much time I have spent on writing and how many words I've gotten, I will think of you. And
thanks for listening to The Write Focus, a podcast for writers at all levels, hosted by Emma Lee from Writers Inc. Books, assisted by Renee Black and Edie Runes. Our focus is productivity, process, craft, and tools. Music is licensed through Audio Jungle, called Background Music Loop. Its creator is Alexander Polishchuk, known on Audio Jungle as Plastic 3. The music comes in different iterations. Show notes and resource links for this and other episodes can be found at thewritefocus.blogspot.com. Write to us at winkbooks@aol.com when you have questions, comments, and speculations. We will try to answer you as quickly as possible. By the way, we will not mine your email address. That's rude. If you find value in our content, share with your writing friends or write a review. We're small beans here without the advertising budget of the big peeps, and you can make a difference. And whatever occurs, write on.